George Foreman, the two-time heavyweight champion, Olympic gold medalist, and one of the most feared knockout artists in boxing history, is a man whose name once sent shivers down the spines of opponents. But today, at 75, his life looks entirely different. How did Big George go from being the baddest man in boxing to a cheerful pastor, a beloved TV personality, and the face of one of the most iconic kitchen appliances of all time? His journey is filled with incredible highs and devastating lows, from a meteoric rise as a young Olympic hero and heavyweight king to a dramatic fall after his shocking loss to Muhammad Ali. Along the way, he faced a near-death experience that changed his life forever, overcame accusations of corruption in boxing, and found himself remembered by younger generations more for his grill than for his fists. Yet, behind it all, George Foreman remains a living legend, a man who continues to inspire through his resilience, transformation, and lasting legacy. Early life and struggles. George Foreman's story begins in the tough streets of Houston, Texas, where he was born on January 10, 1949. Raised in poverty by his mother, Nancy Foreman, and her husband, J.D. Foreman, George took his stepfather's last name after his biological father abandoned the family. Life in Houston's Fifth Ward was harsh and unforgiving, especially for young George. The neighborhood was notorious for its high crime rates, and without a stable father figure or positive role model, George gravitated toward trouble from an early age. Discovering boxing. It was at the Job Corps that Foreman discovered boxing, a sport that would change the trajectory of his life forever. Initially, Foreman wasn't interested in boxing. He joined a local gym simply as a way to vent his anger and keep out of trouble. However, under the guidance of Doc Broaddus, a Job Corps counselor and former boxer, George quickly realized that fighting was something he was uniquely gifted at. Broaddus saw potential in the angry young man and encouraged him to train seriously. Foreman's raw power, combined with his natural size and aggression, made him a force to be reckoned with, even as a beginner. Boxing gave Foreman a purpose he had never felt before. It provided an outlet for his rage and a way to channel his energy into something constructive. For the first time in his life, he had a goal: to be the best. Foreman dedicated himself to his training, and within a short time, he began to dominate amateur boxing tournaments, catching the attention of national selectors. In 1968, just 2 years after he discovered boxing, Foreman was selected to represent the United States at the Summer Olympics in Mexico City, competing in the heavyweight division. Although he was still relatively inexperienced compared to many of his opponents, what he lacked in technical skill, he made up for with sheer power and determination. Foreman stormed through the tournament, defeating all of his opponents to reach the finals. In the gold medal match, he faced Jonas Sippes, a highly skilled and experienced fighter from the Soviet Union. The final fight was a showcase of Foreman's dominance. He overwhelmed Sippes with his relentless aggression and power, forcing the referee to stop the fight and awarding Foreman the gold medal. The victory was a defining moment in Foreman's life, as he stood on the podium waving a small American flag, becoming a national hero. It was a moment of redemption for a young man who had once been on a path to ruin. Foreman later described winning the gold medal as his proudest achievement, even more significant than anything he accomplished as a professional boxer. Rise to prominence. After winning Olympic gold in 1968, George Foreman's transition to professional boxing was swift and dominant. At just 20 years old, Foreman turned pro and immediately began making waves in the heavyweight division. His raw power, immense size, and relentless aggression made him a nightmare for his opponents. In just 2 years, Foreman racked up 25 straight wins, most of them coming by devastating knockouts. He quickly gained a reputation as one of the hardest punchers the sport had ever seen. By 1973, Foreman's record stood at an incredible 37-0, with 34 of those victories ending in knockouts. He wasn't just beating his opponents, he was destroying them. Foreman's ability to overwhelm fighters with sheer physicality and punching power was unmatched, and it seemed like no one in the heavyweight division could stand up to him. His rise to prominence culminated in a shot at the heavyweight championship against the reigning titleholder, Joe Frazier, in Kingston, Jamaica, on January 22, 1973. Frazier, known as Smokin' Joe, was an undefeated champion with a relentless style of his own. He had recently defeated Muhammad Ali in their iconic 1971 bout, dubbed the Fight of the Century. Many believed Frazier would have the experience and toughness to handle the younger Foreman. However, what unfolded that night in Kingston shocked the boxing world. Foreman entered the fight with unshakable confidence, and his performance backed it up. From the opening bell, he overwhelmed Frazier with his incredible power in one of the most one-sided title fights in history. Foreman knocked Frazier down 6 times in just 2 rounds. The fight was famously called by commentator Howard Cosell, who exclaimed the iconic phrase, "Down goes Frazier. Down goes Frazier. Down goes Frazier," as the champion hit the canvas again and again. The referee finally stopped the fight in the second round, crowning George Foreman as the new heavyweight champion of the world. At just 24 years old, Foreman had reached the pinnacle of boxing. Foreman's dominance didn't end there. He successfully defended his title twice, further cementing his reputation as an unstoppable force in the heavyweight division. One of his most notable defenses came against Ken Norton, a fighter who had previously defeated Muhammad Ali. Foreman obliterated Norton in just 2 rounds, battering him with a relentless barrage of punches that left no doubt about who the superior fighter was. By this point, Foreman's aura of invincibility was firmly established. The Rumble in the Jungle. In 1974, Foreman faced the biggest challenge of his career in the legendary Rumble in the Jungle against Muhammad Ali. The fight, held in Zaire, now the Democratic Republic of Congo, was one of the most anticipated sporting events in history. Foreman entered the fight as the undefeated champion, a 3-1 favorite, and widely regarded as unbeatable. Ali, meanwhile, was seen by many as past his prime, having lost to both Joe Frazier and Ken Norton in recent years. Foreman's physical superiority and destructive punching power made him the clear favorite, but Ali had other plans. From the outset, Ali employed his now famous rope-a-dope strategy, leaning against the ropes and allowing Foreman to punch himself out round after round. Foreman unleashed his power shots, but Ali absorbed them while conserving his energy. What looked like a dangerous gamble on Ali's part was, in fact, a brilliant tactical maneuver. The Rumble in the Jungle was more than just a loss, it became a defining moment in Foreman's life, marking the beginning of a difficult period filled with self-doubt and soul-searching. Despite the setback, Foreman's early run in professional boxing remains one of the most dominant in history. His rise from Olympic gold medalist to heavyweight champion was nothing short of extraordinary, with a record of 40-1 and a reputation as one of the most feared punchers the sport had ever seen. Foreman had already cemented his place among the legends of boxing. A bizarre comeback attempt. In an effort to reclaim his dominance and remind the world of his power, Foreman staged a bizarre exhibition fight in 1975, where he faced 5 opponents in a single night. The event was intended to showcase his strength and endurance, proving that he was still the same destructive force that had terrorized the heavyweight division. However, the stunt backfired spectacularly. By the time Foreman reached his final 2 opponents, he was too exhausted to finish the bouts convincingly. Instead of reviving his reputation, the event left fans unimpressed and disheartened, and Foreman was booed out of the ring. What was meant to be a triumphant display of his resilience became a public embarrassment. Despite this setback, Foreman returned to professional boxing in 1976 and soon found himself in one of the most thrilling fights of his career, facing Ron Lyle, a fellow power puncher known for his devastating knockout ability. Foreman was forced to dig deep. The two engaged in a brutal slugfest that would go down in history as one of the greatest fights of all time. In the 4th round, the fight reached a fever pitch. Lyle dropped Foreman with a thunderous punch, only for Foreman to rise and knock Lyle down in return. In the ring, Foreman looked sluggish and out of sorts. Jimmy Young, a skilled and crafty fighter, outmaneuvered the larger, slower Foreman over the course of the bout. Foreman struggled to mount a consistent offense and eventually lost the fight by unanimous decision. It was a humbling defeat, but what happened after the fight would change Foreman's life forever. A life-changing experience. Exhausted and dehydrated, Foreman collapsed in the dressing room after the fight. As his team rushed to his aid, Foreman experienced what he later described as a near-death experience. He felt his body weakening and believed he was on the brink of death. In a moment of desperation, Foreman began to pray, a striking gesture for a man who had never been particularly religious. According to Foreman, he felt a divine presence and heard a voice that said, "I don't want your money, I want you." The experience left a profound impact on him. Foreman's near-death experience marked the end of his first chapter in boxing and the beginning of a profound transformation. The fall from grace was humbling for Foreman. Once feared as the most dangerous man in the heavyweight division, he now found himself searching for meaning outside the ring. His spiritual awakening offered him a path forward, but it would take years before Foreman would return to boxing and complete one of the greatest comebacks in sports history. For the time being, the angry, destructive George Foreman was gone, replaced by a man seeking peace, purpose, and redemption. Foreman's near-death experience in 1977 not only ended his first run in professional boxing but also transformed him as a person. Following his loss to Jimmy Young and the life-changing spiritual awakening he experienced in the dressing room, Foreman retired from boxing at just 28 years old. He turned his back on the sport that had made him a global star, choosing instead to dedicate his life to his newfound faith. A new beginning. Foreman became a born-again Christian and threw himself into ministry work, preaching the gospel and sharing his story of redemption. He founded the Church of the Lord Jesus Christ in Houston, Texas, where he served as a pastor, leading services multiple times a week. He saw his ministry as a way to give back, helping others find hope and purpose just as he had. For more than a decade, Foreman lived a quieter life outside the public eye, focused on his faith, family, and health in the community. The once angry, intimidating heavyweight champion had transformed into a jovial, approachable man known for his big smile and even bigger heart. But Foreman's journey wasn't over. In 1987, after a 10-year hiatus, Foreman shocked the world by announcing his return to professional boxing at 38 years old. Slowly but surely, Foreman climbed the heavyweight rankings, silencing doubters along the way. The pinnacle of his comeback came in 1994 when Foreman, at 45 years old, faced Michael Moorer for the WBA and IBF heavyweight titles. Moorer, 26 years old and in his prime, was the heavy favorite. But Foreman defied the odds, trailing on the scorecards for most of the fight. In the 10th round, Foreman unleashed a thunderous right hand, knocking Moorer out and reclaiming the heavyweight title. With this victory, Foreman became the oldest heavyweight champion in boxing history. The moment was a testament to his resilience, perseverance, and ability to rewrite his story. After retiring for good in 1997, Foreman found a second career that would make him a household name for an entirely different reason: the George Foreman Grill. In the mid-1990s, Foreman became the spokesperson for the fat-reducing grill, a product that became a runaway success. The grill, marketed as a healthier way to cook, resonated with millions of consumers and turned Foreman into a pop culture icon. The deal was incredibly lucrative for Foreman. Initially paid based on sales commissions, he eventually struck a $200 million buyout deal to lend his name to the product permanently. The grill's success overshadowed his boxing legacy for many younger generations, who came to know Foreman more as the friendly TV pitchman than the two-time heavyweight champion.